your continued viewership. Before we begin, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? We love knowing our global reach. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. The Call. Friday evening at Monarch Financial Group's downtown offices. Most employees had already left for the weekend, but Dominic Reeves remained hunched over his desk, reviewing investment portfolios for Monday's executive meeting. At 42, Dominic had built a reputation as one of the city's most brilliant investment strategists, calculated, meticulous, and relentless. The floor-to-ceiling windows of his corner office showcased the city lights emerging against the darkening sky. His phone vibrated against the mahogany desk. Unknown number. Dominic typically ignored such calls, but something, perhaps the late hour or some subconscious premonition, made him answer. "Mr. Reeves?" A woman's voice, formal and tense. "This is Special Agent Alvarez with the FBI. I need you to come to 1457 Lakeside Terrace, apartment 311. There's been an incident involving your wife." Dominic's mind raced through possibilities. Apartment 311. That was Stella's old place before they married 3 years ago. She'd kept it as a creative space for her photography. He'd thought nothing of it. Stella valued her independence, and Dominic respected her need for artistic freedom. "Is she hurt?" His voice remained even, betraying none of the adrenaline now coursing through him. "She's unharmed, but I can't share more over the phone. Please come immediately." 20 minutes later, Dominic pulled his Audi into the familiar parking lot of the Lakeside complex. Police cruisers and an unmarked FBI vehicle flanked the entrance. A uniformed officer escorted him upstairs. The apartment door stood ajar. Inside, chaos. Evidence markers scattered across the usually pristine space. Technicians photographed surfaces. And there, on the couch, sat Stella, his wife of 3 years, her wrists in handcuffs, tears streaming down her perfect face. More surprising were her parents, Theodore and Vivian Pierce, standing in the corner. They rarely visited from Connecticut, claiming the cross-country flight was too taxing. Yet here they were, looking devastated. Vivian rushed toward him, clutching his arm with bony fingers. "Dominic, dear, thank God you're here." Stella swears it wasn't her fault. Before he could respond, Stella's eyes locked with his. "Dom, please don't let him see the bedroom." Her voice cracked with desperation. Special Agent Alvarez, a stern-faced woman with sharp eyes, approached. "Mr. Reeves, your wife called her parents before we arrived. We're still trying to understand the situation." Something cold settled in Dominic's chest. He moved toward the bedroom, ignoring Stella's pleas. "Sir, we haven't finished processing." An officer tried to block his path, but Dominic pushed past. The bedroom door offered slight resistance. He forced it open. Blood everywhere, splattered across the white bed sheets, the cream carpet, the abstract artwork Stella had created during their honeymoon in Santorini. And sprawled across the bed, a man's body, late 30s, athletic build, a neat bullet hole in his forehead. But it wasn't the corpse that froze Dominic in place. It was the photos plastered across the walls, hundreds of them. Stella with this man, kissing, embracing, making love, dating back 18 months, half their marriage. And on the bedside table, 2 handwritten journals. He grabbed one, flipped it open. April 7th, Dom working late again. Meeting in at the apartment. He understands me in ways Dom never could. June 15th. And want me to leave Dom. Says we could be happy together. But the prenup Dom made me sign would leave me with nothing. August 30th. Discussed options within. Dom's life insurance policy would solve everything. No prenup restriction if he dies. Dominic felt nothing. No rage. No heartbreak. Just a cold, crystalline clarity. He'd spent his life analyzing risks and returns. Now he was calculating something different, the precise cost of betrayal. "Mr. Reeves." Agent Alvarez stood in the doorway. "The deceased is Noah Blackwell, a photography client of your wife's. We need to ask you some questions." "Of course." His voice sounded distant to his own ears. "But first, I'd like to understand why my wife is in handcuffs while her lover lies dead in her secret apartment. The weapon registered to your name was found in her possession. His custom Sig Sauer. A gift from his father, usually locked in the safe at their home. I had nothing to do with this, Stella sobbed from the living room. Someone is framing me. Noah and I were just friends. These photos, the journals, they must be faked. Dominic turned to face her, their eyes meeting across the blood-spattered room. In that moment, something shifted in him. The man who had walked into this apartment, the man who had believed in the sanctity of their marriage, died. What remained was something harder, colder, something unforgiving. Chapter 2. The Unraveling. The next 48 hours passed in a blur of police interviews, lawyer consultations, and shocked phone calls from friends and family. Dominic moved through it all with mechanical precision, revealing nothing of his inner thoughts. Stella was released on bail, paid by her parents, pending further investigation. The prosecution's case seemed strong. Dominic's gun, her fingerprints, their secret apartment, a documented affair, and apparent murder conspiracy. But without concrete evidence of premeditation, they couldn't yet charge her with first-degree murder. While Stella retreated to her parents' hotel, claiming she feared for her safety, Dominic returned alone to their sprawling hillside home. The 5,000-square-foot modern masterpiece they designed together now felt like a mausoleum for their marriage. In his home office, he methodically spread out everything he'd learned. Noah Blackwell, 36, commercial photographer with a studio downtown, first met Stella when she took his advanced photography workshop 2 years ago. Their affair began 3 months later. Dominic's phone rang. Preston Walsh, his oldest friend from their Stanford days, and now the criminal defense attorney Dominic had retained. The FBI searched Blackwell's apartment today, Preston said without preamble. They found evidence suggesting he was blackmailing several wealthy married women he'd seduced. Dominic's mind churned through implications. Was Stella one of them? No records involving her. Just the journals at the crime scene, which the FBI finds suspicious. Too convenient. What's their working theory? That Stella killed him in a lover's quarrel, or to prevent exposure of the affair? But they're also looking at you, Dom. Me? Dominic's voice remained cool. Husband discovers wife's infidelity, uses his own gun to frame her for killing the lover. It's not unheard of. I was at the office with 20 witnesses. They're checking the traffic cameras, security footage. Just watch yourself. After hanging up, Dominic opened his laptop and began digging. His college minor in computer science was finally proving useful. Financial records, deleted emails, phone records. He needed everything. But he'd have to be careful. Detectable hacking would only intensify suspicion against him. 3 hours into his investigation, he found something. 4 days before the murder, Stella had withdrawn $75,000 from her personal account, money from her photography business that wasn't part of their shared finances. The next day, Noah Blackwell had deposited $70,000 into his account. Dominic sat back, pieces aligning in his mind. Blackmail didn't fit. This was something else. His doorbell rang at 11:47 p.m. Through the security monitor, he recognized Lily Montero, Stella's best friend since their college days at UCLA. Lily had never liked Dominic, viewing him as too controlling for free-spirited Stella. He opened the door. "It's late, Lily." She pushed past him, eyes red from crying or drinking, probably both. "Is it true? The affair? The murder? Why are you asking me? Stella's the one with handcuffs and a dead lover." Lily slapped him hard across the face. "You bastard. You never deserved her." Dominic didn't react to the sting. "You knew about Blackwell." Not a question. Her reaction confirmed it. "She loved him," Lily whispered. "Really loved him. Not like with you. Then why stay married to me?" Lily laughed bitterly. "Your prenup would have left her with nothing. And she needed your connections for her career. So she plotted to kill me instead?" Dominic's tone remained conversational, as if discussing market trends. Lily's eyes widened. "What? No. Stella would never. The journals say otherwise. Unless they're fabricated, as she claims." Lily looked away, her silence damning. "How long have you known about the affair?" "From the beginning," she admitted. 15 months ago, after your trip to Tokyo, when you left her alone for 2 weeks. A business trip he'd invited Stella to join. She declined, claiming a gallery installation deadline. "Did you know they were planning to kill me?" "God, no. I would have stopped that." Lily's horror seemed genuine. Noah had a darker side Stella didn't see at first. Possessive, manipulative. He kept pushing her to leave you, got angry when she wouldn't. Dominic studied her. So, you're suggesting Noah planned my murder without Stella's knowledge? I don't know. Lily's shoulders slumped. 2 weeks ago, Stella called me crying. Said Noah was pressuring her about something terrible. She was scared but wouldn't tell me details. Dominic walked to his bar, poured 2 fingers of scotch. Why come tell me this? Because despite everything, I don't believe Stella killed anyone. Lily's voice strengthened. And if she didn't, someone else did. Someone who knew about the affair, who had access to your gun, who wanted to frame her. You think I orchestrated this? Dominic sipped his scotch, unruffled. I think you're capable of almost anything. Lily grabbed her purse. Just know I'll be watching you. After she left, Dominic returned to his computer. He had more digging to do. By dawn, he discovered 3 crucial pieces of information. First, Noah Blackwell had booked one-way tickets to Venezuela, a non-extradition country, for himself and a woman named Stella Pierce, her maiden name. Second, Blackwell had recently taken out a $2 million life insurance policy naming Saar as beneficiary. And third, most interestingly, 20 minutes before the estimated time of death, a call had been placed from Blackwell's phone to a number Dominic didn't recognize. He traced the number to Maxwell Reed, a former client of his investment firm who'd lost millions following Dominic's advice during the last market downturn. Reed had threatened Dominic afterward, blaming him personally for the losses. Dominic hadn't considered him significant, just another risk-taking investor who couldn't accept market realities. Now he wondered. The pieces were assembling into a picture far more complex than a simple affair. This wasn't just betrayal, it was conspiracy, and it extended beyond just Stella and her lover. Dominic closed his laptop. He needed to approach this like any other strategic problem. Identify all players, understand their motivations, analyze vulnerabilities, then exploit them, one by one. Chapter 3. The Players. Monday morning, Dominic walked into Monarch Financial Group immaculately dressed, not a hint of his personal turmoil visible. His assistant, Vanessa, offered sympathetic eyes, but knew better than to mention the scandal now spreading through financial circles. Your 9:30 with the Pete Ursons is canceled, she informed him. But Mr. Harrington insisted on keeping your lunch appointment. Lawrence Harrington, CEO of Monarch and Dominic's mentor for 15 years. The lunch would be uncomfortable, but necessary. Dominic needed to maintain the appearance of normalcy while he worked on his broader strategy. Any messages from Stella? He asked. She called twice this morning. I told her you were unavailable. Keep doing that. Throughout the morning, Dominic functioned on autopilot while his mind worked the angles of his predicament. By 11 a.m., he'd received a text from Preston. Evidence inventory from crime scene released. Recovered bullet doesn't match your SIG's barrel rifling. FBI bringing in ballistics expert. Interesting. So his gun hadn't fired the fatal shot, despite being found at the scene. Another piece of the puzzle. At noon, Dominic met Lawrence at Vespero, their usual spot for business lunches. Lawrence, silver-haired, patrician, and politically connected, had already ordered their usual scotch. Dominic. Lawrence's handshake was firm. I've instructed HR to provide whatever support you need during this situation. I appreciate that. The board is concerned about client perception. Perhaps a temporary leave. Unnecessary, Dominic interrupted. My personal issues won't affect my performance. Lawrence studied him. You seem remarkably composed for a man whose wife has been accused of murdering her lover with his gun. I compartmentalize well. You taught me that. Indeed, Lawrence sipped his scotch. What does your lawyer say? That the evidence against Stella is substantial but circumstantial. And where do you stand? Do you believe she's capable of murder? Dominic considered his response carefully. 3 days ago, I would have said no. Now, I realize how little I knew about my wife. A difficult realization. Lawrence signaled for menus. And this man, Blackwell, no previous connection to you? None I've discovered. Lawrence nodded thoughtfully. Stella's gallery showing last month was quite successful. Several of my associates purchased pieces. The show you encouraged me to miss for the Chicago conference? Dominic asked mildly. A flicker of something, discomfort, crossed Lawrence's face. The Westbrook acquisition was crucial. Your presence was needed in Chicago. Of course. Their conversation drifted to market projections, but Dominic filed away Lawrence's reaction. Another potential connection to investigate. After lunch, instead of returning to the office, Dominic drove to a coffee shop 3 blocks from Maxwell Reed's real estate agency. From his laptop, he accessed Reed's financial records through back channels that couldn't be traced. Reed had received a wire transfer of $100,000 2 days before the murder from an offshore account. The same account had received $250,000 from Noah Blackwell 3 weeks earlier. Dominic's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I know what you're doing. We should talk. Parkview Cemetery, 7 p.m. Come alone. L. Lily Montero. How had she gotten this number? And what did she know? At 6:55 p.m., Dominic parked outside the cemetery gates. Security cameras would record his arrival, a necessary precaution. He found Lily waiting by a marble angel, looking nervous. Thanks for coming, she said, her earlier hostility replaced by something more complicated. I've been doing some digging myself. Why would you investigate your best friend's case? Because things aren't adding up. She handed him a flash drive. Stella's email password has been the same for years. These are messages between her and Noah from the past month. And you're giving them to me because somebody set Stella up, and I think these might help find out who. Lily hugged herself against the evening chill. I still don't trust you, but if you're being framed too, what changed your mind about my involvement? The gun. Lily met his eyes. Noah was killed with a .22 caliber bullet. Your Sig Sauer is 9 millimeters. It was planted there to implicate both of you. Dominic had suspected as much from Preston's text, but confirmation was valuable. These emails, anything specific I should look for? Pay attention to the ones from 3 weeks ago. Noah was terrified of someone. A client he'd photographed for years who discovered something sensitive. A name. He never specified, but whoever it was had serious leverage over him. Lily glanced around nervously. I should go. If Stella knew I was giving you these. She'd what? Dominic pressed. She'd say I was betraying her. Lily looked pained. Maybe I am, but somebody murdered Noah and framed my best friend. If you can find out who, despite whatever she did to you, that's all that matters now. As Lily walked away, Dominic called after her. Why did she keep the apartment secret from me? Lily paused. At first, it was just her private space. It became their place. Noah convinced her you were monitoring her, that you didn't trust her artistic career. Was I? Weren't you? The calls checking her whereabouts? The questions about her clients? Lily shook her head. Noah exploited your controlling tendencies to isolate her. Classic manipulation. After Lily left, Dominic sat in his car reviewing the emails. Most were passionate exchanges between lovers, but the tone shifted dramatically 3 weeks before the murder. Noah became paranoid, warning Stella they were being watched. References to H, who had evidence that could destroy everything. One message from Noah, dated 4 days before his death. He's given me no choice, Stella. I have to do what he asks, or everything comes out. The money you transferred won't be enough. I'm sorry for what happens next. The final email, sent just hours before the murder. It's done. The pieces are in place. By tomorrow night, we'll be free. Don't come to the apartment until I call. Once it's over, we'll have everything we wanted. Dominic closed the laptop, mind racing. The picture was becoming clearer. A framed job orchestrated by someone with power, money, and a grudge against him. Someone who had discovered Noah's affair with Stella and used it to manipulate them both. Someone who had arranged for Dominic's gun to be stolen and planted at the murder scene. Someone who knew them all well enough to exploit their weaknesses. Dominic started his car, a cold determination settling over him. He wasn't just a victim in this scenario. He was being hunted by someone who thought they were smarter than him. They'd miscalculated badly. Chapter 4. The Architect. Dominic spent the next 3 days building his case like a master chess player, positioning pieces across the board. The flash drive from Lily contained more than just emails. Noah had kept meticulous records of his blackmail victims, including photos, meetings, and payments. But nothing directly implicated Stella in a murder plot against Dominic. On Thursday morning, Dominic received a call from Agent Alvarez. "Mr. Reeves, we've made some progress in the investigation. Could you come to the field office this afternoon?" 3 hours later, he sat across from Alvarez in a sterile interview room. "Ballistics confirms the bullet that killed Blackwell wasn't fired from your Sig Sauer," she stated, watching him carefully. "Additionally, we've uncovered evidence suggesting your wife may have been coerced into her relationship with the victim." Coerced. Dominic maintained a neutral expression. Alvarez pushed a folder across the table. "We found these in a storage unit registered to Blackwell. Inside were photos of Stella, clearly taken without her knowledge, dating back to before their affair began. Hundreds of surveillance images showing her daily routines, her meetings, her private moments. Classic stalking behavior. We believe Blackwell targeted your wife specifically," Alvarez continued. "He had files on several wealthy married women. We're still determining whether his interest in your wife was financial or if there was another motivation." "Has Stella seen these?" "Yes. She claims she had no idea he was surveilling her before they met." Dominic studied the timeline of photos. "This predates their photography class." "Yes," which suggests the class wasn't a coincidental meeting. Dominic nodded thoughtfully. "Have you checked Blackwell's past? Previous relationships? He has a sealed juvenile record in Montana. We're working on getting it opened." Alvarez leaned forward. "Mr. Reeves, given this new evidence, we're exploring alternative scenarios. One possibility is that someone with a grudge against either you, your wife, or Blackwell orchestrated this situation. And my gun, reported missing from your safe 3 weeks ago by your housekeeper, Marina Santos. You were traveling in Singapore." Dominic had no memory of such a report. Marina had worked for them for 2 years, thoroughly vetted, impeccable references. Another person to investigate. "We're releasing your wife from bail restrictions," Alvarez added. "But the investigation remains open." After leaving the FBI office, Dominic drove directly to the Westbridge Hotel where Stella and her parents were staying. He needed to assess her directly, to look into her eyes without the shock of discovery clouding his judgment. Theodore Pierce answered the door, his weathered face hostile. "She doesn't want to see you. It's not optional." Dominic stepped past him. Stella sat by the window, gazing out at the city skyline. She'd lost weight, her designer clothes hanging loosely on her frame. When she turned, her eyes widened in surprise, then narrowed with wariness. "Everyone out," Dominic commanded. "I need to speak with my wife alone." "Absolutely not," Vivian protested. "It's okay, Mom." Stella's voice was stronger than expected. "Give us 15 minutes. After her parents reluctantly left, an uncomfortable silence filled the room. "The FBI showed me the surveillance photos," Dominic finally said. "Blackwell was stalking you before you ever met." Stella nodded slowly. "I had no idea until they showed me. It's terrifying to think about." "Did you love him?" The directness of the question startled her. I thought I did. Now I don't know what was real and what was manipulation." "The journals they found. The murder conspiracy. Was that manipulation too?" "I never wrote those." Tears filled her eyes. "I never planned to hurt you, Dominic. I betrayed our marriage, yes. I was weak and confused and flattered by his attention. But murder? Never." Dominic studied her carefully. In the 7 years he'd known Stella, 4 dating, 3 married, he'd learned her tells. The slight flush when lying. The eye contact that intensified with honesty. Now, she met his gaze steadily. "Someone went to elaborate lengths to frame you," he said evenly. "Someone who knew about your affair, had access to my gun, and wanted Blackwell dead. The FBI thinks it might be Maxwell Reed," Stella offered. "Noah photographed his properties for years. Recently, they had some kind of falling out." "What else aren't you telling me, Stella?" She hesitated. Noah was scared these past few weeks. Said someone powerful had discovered something he'd done and was using it against him. He wouldn't tell me details. Said it was safer if I didn't know. "The $75,000 you gave him?" Stella flinched. "You know about that?" "I know everything now." His voice remained calm. "What was the money for?" He said it was to pay off someone who was threatening him. That once it was handled, We could be together openly. She laughed bitterly. I was such a fool. Were you planning to leave me? Yes. The simple admission hung between them. After my gallery showing, Noah said he'd booked us tickets somewhere we could start fresh. Venezuela. One-way tickets in your maiden name. Stella's eyes widened. How did you? Like I said, I know everything now. Dominic stood. The FBI is lifting your bail restrictions. You're free to go wherever you want. What happens to us? Her voice was small. There is no us anymore, Stella. You made that decision 15 months ago. Dominic, please. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but you're right. You don't. He moved toward the door. But someone tried to destroy both of us. I intend to find out who. And then what? Something in his expression made her shiver. Dominic smiled coldly. Then I'll do what I've always done. Calculate the appropriate return on investment. That evening, Dominic met Preston at his private club. The attorney had news. Blackwell's juvenile record is interesting, Preston said quietly. At 16, he was arrested for stalking and assaulting his high school photography teacher, a married woman who rejected his advances. Pattern behavior. Exactly. But here's where it gets unusual. The charges were dropped suddenly. The teacher and her husband moved out of state. And the judge who dismissed the case? Lawrence Harrington's brother. Dominic absorbed this, pieces clicking into place. Harrington never mentioned knowing Blackwell. There's more. I had my investigator dig into Blackwell's client list. 4 years ago, he did a private photo session for the Harrington family compound in Montana. Guest lists indicate your wife was there too, some charity event. Before I met her, Dominic considered the implications. Harrington encouraged Stella's photography career from the beginning. Introduced her to gallery owners, collectors. You think he knew about the affair? I think he orchestrated it. Dominic's mind raced through connections. Harrington lost millions in the Eastland venture last year, a deal I advised against. He blamed me when the board sided with my analysis. That's a long way from murder conspiracy. Is it? Blackwell had leverage over Harrington from their past connection. Harrington turns it around, uses Blackwell to seduce my wife, then eliminates Blackwell and frames Stella. The perfect revenge. I lose everything while looking like the victim. Preston looked skeptical. That's elaborate even for Harrington. He didn't work alone. Maxwell Reed, my former client. Marina, our housekeeper who supposedly reported my gun missing. They're connected somehow. What's your next move? Dominic checked his watch. I have a dinner appointment. An hour later, he sat across from Vanessa, his assistant, at an intimate restaurant in the Arts District. I appreciate the invitation, she said cautiously, but given everything happening, I need information only you can provide, Dominic interrupted. You've managed my calendar for 5 years. You've seen everyone who's come through my office, every call, every meeting. What exactly are you asking? Harrington, how often did he inquire about my travel schedule? My absences from his city? Vanessa considered. Often, especially this past year. He always wanted to know when you'd be gone overnight. And Stella? Did she ever call when I was traveling? A few times, usually to confirm your return date. Vanessa hesitated. There's something else. Last month, I overheard Harrington on the phone in the conference room. He mentioned your name and said, the Reeves problem will be resolved permanently by month's end. I thought he meant reassigning some of your clients. Did you tell anyone? Who would I tell? He's the CEO. Dominic nodded. One more question. The Chicago conference 3 weeks ago, the one Harrington insisted I attend, was my name on the original attendee list? No. Bradley Williams was scheduled to go. Harrington changed it personally. Another piece. During that conference, Dominic's gun had disappeared. Thank you, Vanessa. This conversation never happened. Of course. She studied him. Whatever you're planning, be careful. Harrington didn't get where he is by being careless. Neither did I. The next day, Dominic began the careful work of building his trap. He contacted Marina Santos, arranging to meet her at a cafe near her apartment. The Salvadoran woman arrived looking nervous, her English deteriorating as her anxiety increased. Mr. Reeves, I swear I report the gun missing. I fill out paper at police station. I believe you, Marina. Dominic's tone was reassuring. I just need to understand who asked you to check the safe that day. Marina's eyes darted around the cafe. It was Mrs. Reeves. She called, say she need jewelry from safe for photo shoot. When I open, I see gun gone. Did Stella come to the house that day? No. She say she too busy. Asked me to check. And you're certain it was Stella on the phone? Marina hesitated. It sounded like her. But phone connection not good. Dominic slid an envelope across the table. Your brother in El Salvador. He's having visa problems, correct? Marina's eyes widened. How you know this? I have connections in immigration. This contains contact information for an attorney who can help. No charge. All I ask is that you think carefully about that phone call. That night, Marina called him, voice trembling. I remember something. When she called me, she asked about security code for house. Mrs. Reeves never forget code. And she called me Maria 2 times. Mrs. Reeves always get my name right. Thank you, Marina. My offer of help stands regardless. The final piece came from an unexpected source. Lily texted him. Found audio recordings on Noah's cloud backup. Meeting at cemetery, same place, 8 p.m. This time, Lily wasn't alone. A thin, anxious man in his 50s stood beside her. This is Terrence Palmer, Lily introduced him. Noah's former business partner. Noah kept recordings of his blackmail victims, Palmer explained. Insurance, he called it. I didn't know until after his death when his automated system sent me access credentials. Why bring them to me? Because one of them features Lawrence Harrington, Lily said, and it changes everything. The recording, played from Palmer's phone, captured Harrington's distinctive voice. I don't care how you do it, Blackwell. The prenup protects his assets if she leaves him, but not if he dies. Frame her for your murder, if necessary. Just make sure Dominic Reeves suffers for what he did to me. When was this recorded? Dominic asked. 3 weeks ago, Palmer replied. The day before Noah started acting strange. Why would Harrington want to destroy you? Lily asked. Dominic's laugh held no humor. Because I cost him his chance at becoming Treasury Secretary. Both look confused. Last year, Harrington was being vetted for a cabinet appointment. As compliance officer, I discovered he'd been investing government pension funds in private ventures that benefited his family. I reported it to the board. The nomination quietly disappeared. So, this was revenge? Lily looked horrified. Calculated destruction, Dominic corrected. Harrington couldn't touch me professionally without exposing himself. But personally, if my wife murdered her lover with my gun, then killed herself from guilt, my reputation would be destroyed. The perfect symmetry. What are you going to do? Palmer asked. Go to the FBI? Eventually, Dominic pocketed the recording. But first, I need to verify a few things. What he didn't say was that the legal system provided insufficient punishment for what Harrington had done. The man had tried to destroy not just Dominic's marriage, but his entire life. Justice required more than prison time. It required complete ruination. Chapter 5, The Trap. The following Tuesday, Dominic requested a private meeting with Lawrence Harrington. The CEO welcomed him into his opulent corner office with practiced warmth that didn't reach his eyes. Dominic, good to see you back in form. How are things progressing with the investigation? Interesting developments. Dominic accepted the offered scotch. It appears Blackwell was stalking Stella long before their affair began. The FBI believes he targeted her specifically. How disturbing. Harrington settled behind his desk. And Stella? How is she handling the revelation? She's processing it. We're communicating again, trying to understand what happened. A flicker of concern crossed Harrington's face. You're considering reconciliation? I'm considering all options. Dominic sipped his scotch. The FBI mentioned Blackwell had connections in Montana. Your family compound is there, isn't it? Harrington's hand tightened slightly on his glass. Many people have Montana connections, Dominic. What exactly are you implying? Nothing at all. Just an observation. Dominic set down his glass. I'm taking a brief leave of absence. Stella and I are going to our lake house for the weekend. Time to talk without distractions. Is that wise? Given the circumstances? Probably not. But 20 years of investment strategy has taught me one thing. Calculated risks often yield the highest returns. Dominic left Harrington's office, certain the trap was baited. The CEO wouldn't allow a reconciliation that might unravel his carefully orchestrated plan. That evening, Dominic met Maxwell Reed at his real estate office after hours, an unexpected visit that clearly unsettled the balding, heavy-set man. Dominic Reeves. Reed's smile was strained. What brings you here? Clarity. Dominic remained standing. I know about the $100,000 Harrington paid you. I know you helped frame my wife for Blackwell's murder. Reed's face drained of color. That's absurd. I haven't spoken to Harrington in years. Phone records indicate otherwise. 17 calls in the past month. Dominic stepped closer. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to tell me exactly how you were involved, or the FBI receives evidence of your participation in conspiracy to commit murder. Reed collapsed into his chair. It wasn't supposed to be murder, he whispered. Just scandal. Enough to ruin you publicly. Explain. Harrington approached me 3 months ago. Said you destroyed his career and he wanted revenge. He'd already been working Blackwell, using dirt from Montana to force him to seduce your wife. Reed wiped sweat from his brow. My job was to handle the gun, get it from your house during the Chicago trip, and deliver it to Blackwell. And the money? Payment for my part. I never knew Harrington planned to kill Blackwell. I swear. Dominic studied him dispassionately. Who pulled the trigger? I don't know. Harrington has a security consultant, former military guy named Vickers. Does his dirty work. Write it all down. Every detail. And then what? Witness protection? Harrington will kill me if he finds out I talked. That's not my concern. Dominic's voice was cold. You helped orchestrate the destruction of my marriage. Consider your statement the only thing keeping you alive right now. An hour later, with Reed's signed confession in his possession, Dominic called Preston. I need a bug sweep on my lake house. Tonight. You think it's compromised? I know it is. Harrington's been one step ahead the entire time. The following morning, Preston's security team confirmed Dominic's suspicions. The lake house contained 7 listening devices and 3 hidden cameras, all recently installed. Professional job, the security expert noted. Military-grade equipment. Leave them functional, Dominic instructed, but install our own system that can override them when necessary. By Thursday, Dominic had all pieces in position. He called Stella. We need to talk privately. The lake house, tomorrow evening. Why there? Her voice betrayed her nervousness. Because it's the only place I'm certain isn't being monitored by the FBI. Are you sure this is a good idea? No, but it's necessary. There are things you need to know about Blackwell and Harrington. A pause. Harrington? What does he have to do with this? Everything. Be there at 7. Come alone. Dominic ended the call, knowing Harrington's surveillance would have captured every word. The CEO wouldn't be able to resist the opportunity to clean up loose ends, both Dominic and Stella in an isolated location, discussing his involvement. That night, Dominic met Agent Alvarez at a diner off the highway, well away from potential observation. This better be worth my time, Mr. Reeves. She slid into the booth across from him. Lawrence Harrington orchestrated Noah Blackwell's murder to frame my wife and destroy me. Dominic placed a flash drive on the table. This contains Blackwell's blackmail recordings, including Harrington explicitly ordering my destruction, plus a signed confession from Maxwell Reed detailing his role in stealing my gun. Alvarez's expression remained professional, but her eyes sharpened with interest. Why bring this to me privately instead of through official channels? Because Harrington is well-connected. Evidence has a way of disappearing when billions are at stake. And what do you want in return for this cooperation? Surveillance. I've arranged to meet Stella at our lake house tomorrow evening. I've let Harrington believe we're reconciling and that she's sharing information about his involvement. You're using your wife as bait. Alvarez looked disturbed. No, I'm using myself. Dominic met her gaze steadily. Harrington will send his security consultant, Vickers, to silence us both. When he makes his move, I want your team ready. This is highly irregular, Mr. Reeves. So is a CEO orchestrating murder to satisfy a personal vendetta. After a long moment, Alvarez pocketed the flash drive. I'll need to verify this information before committing resources. You have until tomorrow evening. The following day, Dominic prepared meticulously. The lake house, situated on 20 private acres, had been his grandfather's hunting retreat. Remote enough for privacy, accessible enough for a quick FBI response. At 5:30 p.m., he received confirmation from Preston that Alvarez had positioned surveillance teams around the property perimeter. Audio and video feeds from the house's security system were being monitored in real time. At 6:45, Dominic entered the house alone, making a show of checking each room while being captured by Harrington's hidden cameras. In the kitchen, he prepared 2 glasses of wine, making sure the cameras caught him slipping powder into one. A theatrical touch for his audience. Stella arrived at 7:10, looking tense and beautiful in a simple black dress. The surveillance cameras would capture their every move, every word. "Thank you for coming." Dominic handed her the untampered wine glass. "Your message sounded urgent." She didn't drink. "It is." He gestured toward the living room. "We should sit." As they moved through the house, Dominic activated the signal jammer Preston had installed. For 30 seconds, all surveillance devices would malfunction, long enough to whisper in Stella's ear. "We're being watched. Harrington had Blackwell killed to frame you. Play along if you want to survive." Her eyes widened in shock, but she controlled her reaction as the jammer deactivated. 7 years together had taught her to read his subtle signals. "I found Blackwell's recordings," Dominic announced loudly for the microphones. "Harrington ordered him to seduce you, then ordered his murder to destroy us both." Stella's response was perfectly calibrated, genuine emotion channeled into performance. "Lawrence? But why?" "He was my mentor, because I exposed his financial crimes last year. Cost him a cabinet appointment. I can't believe this." Stella paced the room, visible anguish on her face. "All this time, Noah's pursuit of me was orchestrated. Our relationship was a lie, engineered from the beginning. Blackwell studied your routines, your preferences, your insecurities. Even introduced himself through that photography class Harrington recommended." The sound of tires on gravel interrupted them, right on schedule. "Are you expecting someone?" Stella asked, tension genuine now. Dominic moved to the window. "No, but I'm not surprised." A black SUV had parked behind their vehicles. A tall, lean man in dark clothing emerged, moving with military precision toward the house. "Vickers," Dominic muttered. "Harrington's cleaner." "What do we do?" Real fear laced Stella's voice. "Get to the panic room. Now." Dominic guided her toward the hallway. They've barely reached the reinforced door when the first gunshot shattered the kitchen window. Dominic pushed Stella inside the concealed room. "Lock it behind me. You're not coming?" Her eyes widened in alarm. "Someone has to distract him until help arrives." Dominic closed the door, hearing the locks engage. The next 10 minutes unfolded exactly as he planned. Vickers systematically moved through the house, professional and focused. Dominic stayed just ahead of him, leading him on a calculated chase that ended in the study. "Mr. Reeves." Vickers finally cornered him, silenced pistol aimed steadily. "You've been quite troublesome." "More than Harrington anticipated," Dominic agreed calmly. "Where's your wife?" "Safe. Beyond your reach." Vickers smiled thinly. "No one's beyond my reach. After I finish with you, I'll find her. You might want to consider your position first." Dominic nodded toward the window where red laser sights now danced across Vickers' chest. "The FBI has been monitoring this entire encounter." Agent Alvarez's voice came through a megaphone. "Federal agents. Drop your weapon." What happened next wasn't part of Dominic's plan. Instead of surrendering, Vickers lunged at him, knife appearing in his free hand. They crashed into the bookcase, Vickers' blade slicing through Dominic's shirt, drawing blood. 3 shots rang out as FBI snipers fired through the window. Vickers collapsed, dead before he hit the floor. 20 minutes later, paramedics bandaged Dominic's wound, while Alvarez debriefed him. "Harrington's been taken into custody," she informed him. "We found the recording equipment in his office, linking him directly to the surveillance here." And read, "Protective custody." His statement matches the evidence perfectly. Stella, released from the panic room, stood nearby, providing her own statement. Her eyes kept returning to Dominic, emotions impossible to read. What happens now? Dominic asked Alvarez. Harrington faces conspiracy charges, among others. Your wife has been officially cleared of any involvement in Blackwell's murder. And us. Stella had moved closer. Dominic looked at her, this woman he'd loved, who had betrayed him so completely. In her eyes, he saw remorse, gratitude, perhaps even rekindled feeling. There is no us, he said quietly. The divorce papers will be delivered on Monday. Chapter 6. The Execution. Dominic's structured, precise approach to revenge continued over the following weeks. While the FBI built their case against Harrington, he methodically dismantled everything the CEO had built over his lifetime. First came the financial destruction. Using his detailed knowledge of Harrington's investment portfolio, information he'd gathered during years as the man's advisor, Dominic exploited weaknesses the authorities would never find. Anonymous tips to the SEC about overlooked offshore accounts. Carefully timed market moves that devalued Harrington's primary holdings. A whisper campaign among key investors suggesting deeper problems than the public charges. Within 2 weeks, Harrington's $3 billion net worth had been reduced by 70%. The board forced him to resign to distance the firm from the scandal. His carefully cultivated political connections evaporated overnight. At the same time, Dominic addressed his personal situation with the same calculated efficiency. The divorce proceedings moved quickly, the prenuptial agreement providing clear terms. Stella, cleared of criminal charges but destroyed by public scandal, offered no resistance to his terms. 3 weeks after the Lake House confrontation, Dominic received an unexpected visitor at his office. Theodore Pierce, Stella's father, looked every bit his 70 years as he settled heavily into the chair across from Dominic's desk. "I won't take much of your time," the older man began. "I came to apologize for our family's part in this mess." "Your family?" Dominic raised an eyebrow. "I wasn't aware you were involved in Harrington's conspiracy." "Not directly, no." Theodore sighed. "But we pushed Stella into this marriage knowing she wasn't ready. Her mother and I, we saw your success, your stability. After Stella's troubles in college, we thought someone like you could keep her grounded." "Troubles?" Theodore looked surprised. "She never told you?" The breakdown after her first serious relationship ended? The time in the private hospital? She presented quite a different history. Dominic's mind filled in missing pieces of the puzzle. Vivian insisted we keep it quiet. Stella's gap year traveling in Europe was actually 6 months in a psychiatric facility. Her therapist warned us she might seek out destructive relationships after recovering. "Like Blackwell." Theodore nodded sadly. "When we saw those surveillance photos, it made sense. He targeted her vulnerabilities, the same ones we exploited in encouraging your relationship." "Are you suggesting our marriage was built on manipulation as well?" Dominic's voice remained cool. "No, she did love you, in her way, but she was never the person you thought you married." Theodore stood to leave. "We're taking her back to Connecticut next week. She needs care again." After Theodore left, Dominic sat motionless, processing this new information. It didn't change what had happened, but it added dimension to the picture, another layer of manipulation and deceit. His phone buzzed with a message from Preston. Harrington denied bail again. Trial date set for March. The legal system was working, but Dominic wasn't finished. Justice would come through the courts, but vengeance required a personal touch. That evening, he visited Maxwell Reed at the safe house where the FBI had stashed him until the trial. The guards, recognizing Dominic as a cooperative witness, allowed him 15 minutes. Reed looked terrible, unshaven, eyes bloodshot, hands trembling. "Why are you here?" "To gloat. To deliver a message." Dominic sat across from him. "You helped destroy my marriage. Participated in framing my wife for murder. For that, the courts will decide your punishment." "I've cooperated fully." Reed protested. The prosecutor promised leniency. "I'm not talking about legal consequences." Dominic's voice lowered. 3 days ago, I acquired controlling interest in Meridian Properties." Reed's face paled. "My biggest client." "All your clients, actually. I've spent the past week purchasing the holding companies that own every property in your management portfolio." "You can't." "I already have." Effective immediately, your firm is blacklisted from all real estate dealings in this state. Every contract canceled. Every commission forfeited. You'll destroy me. Reed's voice cracked. Yes. Dominic stood. Your testimony will help convict Harrington. For that, you keep your freedom. But you'll never work in real estate again. You'll never rebuild your wealth. You'll spend the rest of your life knowing you sacrificed everything for $100,000. Reed lunged across the table, desperate rage replacing fear. Dominic sidestepped easily, watching dispassionately as guards restrained the man. Your choice led to this outcome, Dominic said calmly. Remember that during the lonely years ahead. A week later, Dominic attended the court hearing where Lawrence Harrington, denied bail for a third time, appeared in an orange jumpsuit, his aristocratic bearing diminished by prison conditions. His once silver hair had dulled, and deep lines etched his face. After the hearing, Dominic waited by the secure exit where defendants were transported back to detention. As Harrington emerged between two marshals, he spotted Dominic. You. Hatred burned in the older man's eyes. Come to witness your handiwork. I learned from Master. Dominic stepped closer, voice low enough that only Harrington could hear. Your legal troubles are just beginning. Threatening me now, Dominic? How uncharacteristically sloppy. Not a threat, a promise. Dominic smiled coldly. While you've been occupied with murder charges, I've been systematically documenting every financial crime you've committed over the past decade. Offshore accounts, tax evasion, money laundering through your Montana property. Harrington's expression flickered. Bluffing. The evidence has already been delivered to federal prosecutors. Anonymously, of course. I expect new charges by month's end. You think this destroys me? Harrington laughed bitterly. I still have resources you can't touch. Family money. Connections. Had, Dominic corrected. Your brother's judicial misconduct in the Blackwell juvenile case has been exposed. The Montana compound is being seized under RICO statutes. As for family money, he shrugged. Your wife filed for divorce yesterday. Her attorneys are quite motivated to protect her assets from forfeiture. For the first time, genuine fear crossed Harrington's face. This vendetta won't bring back your marriage, Dominic. It was never about saving my marriage. Dominic's eyes were glacial. It's about consequences. You targeted everything I valued. Now I've taken everything you value. Sir, step back. One of the marshals intervened. Dominic complied. Goodbye, Lawrence. I won't be visiting you in prison. The final piece of Dominic's vengeance came 3 days later when Lily Montero contacted him. Stella's leaving tomorrow, she said without preamble. Back to Connecticut with her parents. I'm aware. She asked me to give you this. Lily handed him a sealed envelope. And I wanted to thank you for keeping me out of the prosecution. The FBI says I won't be charged with obstruction for hiding Noah's recordings initially. You helped expose the truth. That was sufficient. Lily studied him. You know, for someone who just destroyed everyone who wronged him, you seem remarkably calm. Revenge isn't about emotion. It's about precision. That's what makes you terrifying, Dominic. Lily shook her head. You didn't just want them punished. You wanted them erased. After she left, Dominic opened Stella's letter. Inside was a handwritten note and a small key. Dominic, there's a storage unit at Westside Facility, number 247. The key enclosed provides access. Inside, you'll find everything I couldn't tell you in person, my medical records, journals from before we met, the truth about my past. I won't ask forgiveness. What I did was unforgivable. But perhaps understanding might help you move forward without carrying this darkness. You were never the monster in this story. Don't become one now that it's ending. S. Dominic placed the key and letter in his desk drawer without expression. There would be time later to decide whether knowing Stella's truth served any purpose. For now, his focus remained on the final stages of Lawrence Harrington's destruction. That evening, he received confirmation that federal prosecutors had filed new charges against Harrington, 37 counts of financial crimes spanning a decade. The man would spend the rest of his life in prison, his name synonymous with corruption and murder. Dominic poured himself a scotch and gazed out over the city lights. The revenge he'd orchestrated had been comprehensive and meticulous. Everyone who had participated in the conspiracy had been punished according to their level of involvement. Yet he felt no satisfaction, no sense of closure. The cold calculation that had driven him these past weeks remained, a crystallized version of himself stripped of illusions and weaknesses. His phone chimed with a message from Preston. Reed's wife attempted suicide today. Hospital says she'll recover physically. Collateral damage. Dominic noted the information dispassionately. Actions had consequences. Those who chose to betray others should consider the ripple effects of their decisions. He finished his scotch, mind already turning to the future. His marriage was over. His trust in others permanently altered. But his financial empire remained intact. His professional reputation had actually improved. The resilient victim who had exposed a murderous conspiracy. Dominic Reeves had entered this crucible as a successful man with a seemingly perfect life, only to discover it had been built on deception. He emerged as something harder, colder, more dangerous. Not a victim seeking justice. A force delivering retribution. Chapter 7. The Reckoning. 6 months passed. Spring yielded to summer, bringing heat that shimmered across the city skyline. Dominic observed the changing seasons from his new penthouse with detached interest. Like everything in his life now, his living space had been redesigned for efficiency and security rather than comfort or aesthetics. The Harrington trial had concluded with a predictable outcome. Guilty on all counts, sentenced to life without parole. The financial charges were still pending, but irrelevant now. Lawrence Harrington would die in prison, his legacy destroyed, his name a cautionary tale in business schools. Maxwell Reed had received a lighter sentence, 10 years with possibility of parole, in exchange for his testimony. His wife had recovered from her suicide attempt but filed for divorce. Their home had been foreclosed. Their adult children refused contact with their father. Vickers, the security consultant who had tried to kill Dominic and Stella, remained the only loose end, his military background and connections still largely mysterious. Dominic had hired private investigators to uncover everything about the man, learning he had worked for Harrington on multiple special projects over the years. How many other lives had been destroyed at Harrington's direction? The question lingered, unanswered. Stella had vanished into her parents' care in Connecticut. The divorce had been finalized without her presence, her signature provided by power of attorney. Dominic had never visited the storage unit she'd identified. Whatever truths lay inside remained locked away, both physically and emotionally. On a humid Thursday in July, Dominic received an unexpected visitor at Monarch Financial Group, where he had been elevated to CEO following Harrington's downfall. "Ms. Montero is here to see you," his new assistant announced with obvious discomfort. "She says it's urgent." Dominic nodded, curious despite himself. He hadn't seen Lily since before Stella's departure. She entered his office looking different, hair shorter, expression more severe, designer clothes replaced by practical business attire. "Congratulations on the promotion," she said without warmth. "The king is dead. Long live the king." "What brings you here, Lily?" "I doubt it's professional investment advice." "Stella's dead." The words landed like physical blows, but Dominic's expression remained unchanged. "When?" "Tuesday night. Overdose." Lily placed a small envelope on his desk. "She left this for you. Asked me to deliver it if anything happened to her." Dominic made no move to touch the envelope. "I assumed the funeral arrangements. Private ceremony yesterday. Family only." Lily's voice hardened. "Her parents didn't want you there." "Understandable. Is that all you have to say?" "Understandable." Lily's composure fractured. "She killed herself, Dominic. That was her choice." "Her choice." Lily laughed incredulously. "You destroyed her. After everything Harrington did to manipulate her, after she was cleared of involvement, you still threw her away like garbage. She betrayed our marriage for 15 months. Planned to abandon me. Those were her choices long before Harrington's conspiracy was revealed. You never even tried to understand why." Lily gestured to the envelope. "Did you ever visit that storage unit? Read her medical history? Learn about her borderline personality disorder? The damage from her childhood that made her vulnerable to someone like Blackwell? Would it have changed anything? It might have given you compassion, something beyond your precious calculation. Dominic finally reached for the envelope, turning it in his hands without opening it. Compassion wouldn't have changed what happened. No, but it might have changed what happened afterward. Lily moved toward the door. You won. Harrington's in prison. Everyone who hurt you has been punished. I hope it was worth it. After she left, Dominic sat motionless, the unopened envelope between his fingers. Stella's death should have felt significant, the final chapter in their story. Instead, he felt only a distant acknowledgement, as if reading about a stranger's passing in the newspaper. He placed the envelope in his desk drawer alongside the storage unit key. Perhaps someday he would want those answers. Not today. That evening, Dominic attended a fundraising gala for the governor's re-election campaign, one of many social obligations that came with his elevated position. As he navigated the crowd of politicians and business leaders, he spotted a familiar face, Jennifer Harrington, Lawrence's ex-wife. She approached him directly, champagne flute in hand. At 58, she remained striking, tall, elegant, with the same silver hair that had been her husband's signature feature. Mr. Reeves, I've been hoping to speak with you. Mrs. Harrington. He nodded politely. Ms. Palmer now, she corrected. I've reverted to my maiden name. Of course. I wanted to thank you, she said, surprising him. What Lawrence did was unconscionable. The detectives told me there were other victims before you, other lives he manipulated and destroyed when people crossed him. I'm aware. Dominic had uncovered 3 previous instances of elaborate revenge scenarios orchestrated by Harrington. None as complex as what he'd planned for Dominic, but each devastating to its target. He was a monster long before you knew him, Jennifer continued. I enabled him by looking away, making excuses. For that, I've paid my own price. Dominic studied her. Is there something specific you want from me, Ms. Palmer? Information. Her eyes, the same steel gray as her ex-husband's, met his directly. There are financial irregularities in the family foundation. Missing funds. Programs abandoned without explanation. I believe Lawrence was using the foundation to launder money, but proving it would help you salvage your family's legacy while ensuring he never benefits from hidden assets. Dominic finished her thought. Yes, exactly. I'll have my team analyze the foundation records. If there's evidence of financial crimes, it will be found. Thank you. Jennifer's relief was palpable. I've spent 30 years married to a sociopath, Mr. Reeves. The damage spreads far beyond his intended victims. As she walked away, Dominic considered her words. The ripple effects of Harrington's actions, and by extension, his own response, continued to expand outward, touching lives seemingly distant from the original conflict. Later that night, in his silent penthouse, Dominic finally opened his desk drawer and removed Stella's 2 messages, the original letter with the storage unit key and the final envelope Lily had delivered. The storage unit could wait. He opened the second envelope first. Dominic, if you're reading this, I couldn't find a way forward. I want you to know it wasn't your fault. What happened to us was built on a foundation of lies, some told by others, some told by me, some we told ourselves. I never planned to help murder you. That was Noah's desperation after Harrington threatened him. But I did betray you repeatedly without the excuse of coercion. I did love Noah, or believed I did. My illness makes it difficult to distinguish between genuine emotion and destructive impulse. You were right to end our marriage, right to refuse forgiveness. Some betrayals can't be undone. I'm leaving you the Santorini photographs, the real ones, not the stage versions that appear in galleries. They're the only honest art I created during our time together. Perhaps someday they'll remind you that not everything between us was false. Goodbye, Dominic. I hope you find peace in your new life. Stella. Dominic refolded the letter, expression unchanged. Then he took the storage unit key and placed both items in his pocket. The West Side storage facility was open 24 hours. At midnight, Dominic used the key to unlock unit number 247, a small 5x10 space containing 4 neatly labeled plastic containers and a flat portfolio case. The first container held medical records dating back to Stella's adolescence. Clinical terms documented her conditions, borderline personality disorder, cyclical depression, brief psychotic episodes triggered by emotional abandonment. Treatment histories from facilities in Connecticut, Switzerland, California. Medications, therapies, periods of stability followed by catastrophic relapses. The second container contained journals, dozens of them, spanning 20 years. Dominic opened one from the period when they'd first met. Stella's handwriting, increasingly frantic across the page. Meeting with Dom tonight. He represents everything that could stabilize me. Mom says he's perfect, successful, controlled, unlikely to trigger my abandonment issues. Dad already talking about him, as if he's the solution to their Stella problem. But when he looks at me, I feel seen in a way that terrifies me. What if he discovers who I really am beneath the carefully constructed exterior? The third container held photographs, not artistic compositions, but clinical documentation of self-harm incidents. Thin white scars Dominic had attributed to childhood accidents revealed as deliberate patterns carved during episodes of disassociation. The fourth container contained letters from previous relationships. Men and women who had briefly occupied the central role in Stella's emotional life before being discarded or pushing her away. A pattern repeated with devastating consistency. Finally, the portfolio case. Inside, the Santorini photographs she'd mentioned, raw, unedited images capturing moments of genuine connection during their honeymoon. Dominic's unguarded smile. Stella's eyes reflecting something real, something beyond the illness that had shaped her life. Dawn was breaking when Dominic finally returned to his penthouse. For the first time since discovering Stella's betrayal, he felt something crack in the cold calculation that had governed his response. Not forgiveness, never that, but perhaps something adjacent to understanding. Stella had been broken long before meeting him. Her betrayal, while real, had been influenced by factors beyond simple infidelity. Harrington had exploited those vulnerabilities with surgical precision, using Blackwell as his instrument. In the clear morning light, Dominic faced an uncomfortable truth. In his pursuit of perfect vengeance, he had become a mirror image of Lawrence Harrington. Calculated, merciless, defined by retribution rather than creation. The realization changed nothing about the past, but cast the future in a different light. The question was whether that future would be shaped by the same cold efficiency that had executed his revenge, or whether something else might emerge from the wreckage of everything he'd lost. Dominic closed the storage container of Stella's journals, a decision forming. He would complete what he'd started with Harrington, help Jennifer Palmer expose the foundation fraud, ensure no hidden assets remained. He would maintain his professional trajectory at Monarch, rebuilding the firm's reputation after Harrington's disgrace. But the personal vendettas were finished. Maxwell Reed, already destroyed financially and imprisoned, required no further attention. Stella was beyond any earthly accounting. The other peripheral players, Marina Santos, Terrence Palmer, even Lily Montero, had been sufficiently addressed in the broader resolution. It was time to close this chapter definitively, not with forgiveness. Dominic Reeves did not forgive betrayal, but with a cold acknowledgement that revenge, even perfectly executed, provided no lasting satisfaction. The true victory would be moving forward without allowing the experience to define him. Harrington had sought to destroy Dominic completely. The surest defeat of that aim was not just survival, but evolution. He reached for his phone and dialed Preston's number. "I need you to handle the remaining Harrington matters," he said without preamble. The foundation fraud investigation for Jennifer Palmer. The civil suits from the other victims. All of it. You're stepping back? Preston sounded surprised. "I'm stepping forward. Different direction." After ending the call, Dominic poured himself a rare morning scotch and raised it in a silent toast to closed accounts and calculated returns. Some debts had been paid in full. Others would remain forever in arrears. Chapter 8. The Reconstruction. 1 year to the day after Noah Blackwell's murder, Dominic stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his Monarch Financial Group office, watching a late summer storm roll across the city skyline. At 43, he had consolidated his position as CEO, restructuring the firm with the same precision he'd applied to his revenge. The intercom buzzed. "Mr. Reeves, your 4 o'clock is here. Send her in." Agent Alvarez entered, now promoted to assistant director of the FBI's white-collar division. Their professional relationship had evolved into something resembling mutual respect, if not quite friendship. "Congratulations on the Westbrook acquisition," she said, declining his offer of refreshment. "The financial press is calling you ruthlessly innovative. High praise in this industry." Dominic gestured for her to sit. "What brings the FBI to my door this time?" "Closure." Alvarez placed a file on his desk. "We've finished the investigation into Harrington's previous victims. 5 confirmed cases, including yours. 2 suicides resulting from his machinations. 1 family financially destroyed. 1 promising political career derailed by manufactured scandal. And now justice has been served." Dominic's tone revealed nothing of his thoughts. "Legal justice, yes." Alvarez studied him. "But we both know there was another kind of justice applied in this case." Dominic met her gaze evenly. "I've always operated within the law, Agent Alvarez. Assistant director now." She smiled slightly. "And yes, technically you have. Your financial destruction of Reed and Harrington was masterfully legal. But we both know revenge was your primary motivation. Does the FBI usually concern itself with motivation when no laws have been broken? Only when patterns emerge." Alvarez tapped the file. "In studying Harrington's methodology, we've noticed interesting parallels to your own approach this past year. Clinical, comprehensive, designed to destroy rather than merely punish. If you're suggesting I become like Harrington—" "No," she interrupted firmly. "Harrington was a sociopath who enjoyed suffering. You're something different, more contained. But the precision of your retribution raises questions about what happens next." "Nothing happens next. The accounts are settled." Alvarez nodded slowly. "That's why I'm here, actually. To confirm those accounts are truly closed. No loose ends we should be concerned about." The implied question hung between them. Was Dominic truly finished with his vendetta, or had it become a template for handling future perceived wrongs? "My interest in Harrington ended with his sentencing," Dominic stated flatly. "My focus now is rebuilding this firm." "I'm glad to hear it." Alvarez stood to leave. "One more thing. Lawrence Harrington was found dead in his cell yesterday morning. Apparent suicide, though the investigation is ongoing." Dominic absorbed this information without visible reaction. A final escape from consequences, or the final consequence itself. Alvarez moved toward the door. "Either way, it's over." After she left, Dominic returned to the window, processing this development. Harrington's death should have felt significant, the ultimate resolution to the conflict that had defined the past 18 months of his life. Instead, he felt only a distant acknowledgement of information received. His intercom buzzed again. "Sir, Ms. Palmer is online too. She says it's important. Jennifer Palmer." Another loose in seeking resolution. "Dominic." Her voice sounded strained when he answered. "You've heard about Lawrence?" "Just now. My condolences despite everything." "I'm not calling about that. It's about Cameron. Cameron Harrington, Lawrence's son from his first marriage. A 35-year-old venture capitalist who had publicly disavowed his father after the scandal broke." "What about him?" "He's been making inquiries about you. Detailed ones. Personal habits, security systems, daily routines." Dominic's interest sharpened. "You believe he blames me for his father's downfall?" "I know he does. Lawrence called him from prison last week. Their first communication in months." Jennifer hesitated. "Cameron has his father's temperament, but not his subtlety. If he's planning something, I appreciate the warning." After ending the call, Dominic contacted his head of security, implementing enhanced protocols immediately. Cameron Harrington represented exactly the kind of threat Dominic had prepared for. Emotional, predictable, ultimately manageable. The following evening, Dominic worked late, reviewing acquisition proposals for a promising biotech startup. We finally left the office at 10:45 p.m. The executive parking garage was nearly empty. He sensed the presence before seeing it, a prickling awareness of being watched. Instead of continuing to his car, Dominic stopped, turning slowly to face the concrete support pillar 20 feet away. If you're planning to remain in the shadows, Mr. Harrington, you've chosen poor lighting. Your position is reflected in my car window. Cameron Harrington stepped into view, tall like his father, but leaner, harder, with a barely contained intensity. Impressive awareness. Did prison make my father predictable, or were you always this paranoid? Preparedness isn't paranoia. Dominic maintained a relaxed posture despite noting the slight bulge under Cameron's jacket. Concealed weapon, right side. Did you want something specific, or is this just reconnaissance? I want to see you up close. The man who destroyed my father. Your father destroyed himself. I merely exposed his methods. Cameron's laugh held no humor. After orchestrating an elaborate frame-up involving his gun, his wife, and a dead photographer? Don't insult me with false modesty, Reeves. Your revenge was masterful. If you admired it, why are you here with a poorly concealed firearm? Cameron's hand twitched toward his jacket. Because blood demands blood. Family obligations transcend personal assessment. Before you continue this misguided vendetta, Dominic said evenly, you should know 3 things. First, security cameras are recording this encounter from multiple angles. Second, my head of security is monitoring this conversation in real time. And third, everything you've said so far constitutes evidence of premeditated intent. Cameron's expression wavered between rage and uncertainty. Your father spent decades building his empire before I exposed his crimes, Dominic continued. You've spent the past year distancing yourself from his disgrace, establishing independent credentials. All that progress disappears the moment you draw that weapon. He killed himself because of you. Cameron's voice cracked with genuine grief. No, he killed himself because he couldn't face the consequences of his actions. Dominic took a careful step forward. The same choice you're facing now. Continue his path of destruction or create something different. For a tense moment, Cameron's hand remained poised near his concealed weapon. Then, with visible effort, he relaxed his posture. This isn't finished, he muttered. It can be. Dominic held his gaze. Your father tried to destroy me and failed. Learn from his mistake. After Cameron departed, Dominic's security team emerged from concealed positions throughout the garage. They'd been monitoring the entire encounter, prepared to intervene if necessary. Should we alert the authorities, sir? His head of security asked. Not yet. Dominic considered the implications of Cameron's appearance. Increase surveillance on him for the next month. If he makes any suspicious moves, then we involve law enforcement. Later that night, in his penthouse, Dominic reviewed the security footage of his confrontation with Cameron. The young man's grief had been genuine, his rage authentic. But there had been something else in his eyes, a flicker of reluctance, perhaps even relief when Dominic provided him a rational escape from his emotional obligation. Cameron Harrington wasn't his father. The potential for violence existed, but so did the capacity for growth beyond family legacy. For the first time in nearly 2 years, Dominic recognized something in another person that connected to his own experience, the struggle between defined patterns and new possibilities. Cameron stood at a crossroads similar to Dominic's own. Continue a cycle of retribution or forge a different path. The next morning, Dominic made an unexpected decision. He contacted his investigative team, the same one that had helped dismantle Lawrence Harrington's hidden financial empire, and redirected their efforts. Instead of monitoring Cameron for threats, they would compile information on his venture capital projects, identifying those with legitimate potential. 3 days later, Dominic received a comprehensive analysis of Cameron's business portfolio. Most were standard tech investments, but one stood out, a medical technology startup developing advanced treatments for psychiatric disorders, focusing on borderline personality disorder and related conditions. The connection to Stella's condition couldn't be coincidental. Further investigation revealed Cameron had founded the company shortly after his father's arrest, using his portion of family funds not seized by authorities. Dominic arranged a meeting at a neutral location, a private room at the city's Museum of Modern Art. Cameron arrived, looking wary but curious. I assumed our next interaction would involve lawyers or police, he said, declining to shake Dominic's offered hand. That path remains available if you prefer it. Dominic gestured to the portfolio on the table between them. But I'm offering an alternative. What kind of alternative? A business proposition. Dominic opened the portfolio, revealing detailed analysis of Cameron's medical technology venture. Your psychiatric treatment research is innovative but underfunded. Monarch Financial Group has clients looking for exactly this kind of investment opportunity. Cameron's expression shifted from suspicion to confusion. You want to help fund my company? After everything that happened? I'm proposing a strictly professional relationship benefiting both parties. Your company gets necessary capital. My clients get investment in promising medical technology. Why? Cameron asked bluntly. What's your angle? Dominic considered his response carefully. Your company focuses on borderline personality disorder, the condition that affected my ex-wife. That research might help others with similar struggles. Understanding dawned in Cameron's eyes. This isn't about me or my father. It's about her. It's about creating something constructive from destruction. Dominic closed the portfolio. You have 48 hours to consider the offer. After that, it's withdrawn permanently. 2 days later, Cameron's attorneys contacted Dominic with conditional acceptance, beginning a careful negotiation process that ultimately resulted in a $10 million investment package structured to maintain Cameron's control while providing necessary growth capital. At the contract signing, Cameron finally asked the question that had clearly been bothering him. Is this your version of forgiveness? No. Dominic's response was immediate and definitive. I don't forgive your father's actions or your threats. But perpetuating the cycle serves no practical purpose. Practical? Cameron shook his head slightly. Always the calculation with you. Would you prefer emotional decisions ruling business matters? I prefer understanding what transformed you from the man who systematically destroyed everyone connected to my father's conspiracy into this. Cameron gestured vaguely. Someone investing in his enemy's son. Dominic signed a final document before responding. I spent 18 months focused on perfect retribution. It was meticulously executed and ultimately hollow. This investment has tangible potential benefit beyond itself. As they concluded their business, Cameron offered a reluctant handshake. My father would have hated this partnership more than prison. I know. Dominic's smile was cold but genuine. Consider that an added return on investment. That evening, Dominic visited the storage unit containing Stella's personal effects for the final time. He had reviewed everything. Medical records, journals, photographs. Eventually understanding the complex factors that had made her vulnerable to Blackwell's manipulation and Harrington's orchestration. None of it excused her betrayal, but it provided context that had been missing during his campaign of revenge. If Stella had been another type of victim in Harrington's scheme, Cameron represented another form of collateral damage, the son shaped by a father's toxic influence, now struggling to define himself independently. Dominic packed the containers methodically, preparing them for delivery to a secure medical research facility associated with Cameron's company. The journals and medical records might provide valuable insight for their treatment protocols. The photographs, both the clinical documentation of self-harm and the Santorini images, would remain private, destroyed rather than preserved. As he closed the storage unit for the final time, Dominic acknowledged that this chapter of his life was genuinely concluding, not with the fiery satisfaction of revenge completed, but with the cooler recognition that moving forward required releasing the past, not through forgiveness, but through deliberate disconnection. He had emerged from Lawrence Harrington's conspiracy not just intact, but evolved. The ruthless calculation that had executed his revenge now directed his business expansion. The cold clarity that had identified his enemy's vulnerabilities now assessed investment opportunities with unparalleled precision. Dominic Reeves had not forgiven those who betrayed him. He had simply determined that continuing to focus on their destruction limited his own potential for growth. It was, in the end, the most practical decision possible. Chapter 9. The Evolution. 2 years after Noah Blackwell's murder, Dominic stood in the gleaming research laboratory of Neuronova Therapeutics, Cameron Harrington's company that had become the centerpiece of Monarch's medical technology portfolio. Clinical trials for their borderline personality disorder treatment showed promising early results. Not a cure, but potentially a more effective management protocol than existing options. Your investment transformed our timeline, Dr. Elaine Chapman, the lead researcher, explained as she guided him through the facility. We've compressed 5 years of development into 18 months. When do you anticipate FDA approval for human trials? Dominic asked, studying the data displays with his characteristic intensity. 12 to 14 months, barring complications. Dr. Chapman gestured toward a research associate who approached with a tablet. We've just completed the latest comparative analysis using anonymized patient histories. The associate handed Dominic the tablet. He recognized the data immediately. Information extracted from Stella's medical records, anonymized but distinctive in its pattern of treatments and relapses. Patient S shows the typical treatment resistance pattern. Dr. Chapman continued, unaware of the personal connection. Our modeling suggests our new compound might have provided significantly improved stability during critical periods. Dominic handed back the tablet, expression revealing nothing of his thoughts. Theoretical improvements for theoretical patients. For now, Dr. Chapman agreed, but real patients will benefit soon. After concluding the tour, Dominic met briefly with Cameron Harrington in his modernist office overlooking the research campus. Their professional relationship had evolved into a cautious mutual respect, the shadow of Lawrence Harrington's legacy gradually receding from their interactions. The quarterly reports are promising, Dominic noted, accepting the espresso Cameron offered. Monarch's investment committee is pleased. Good timing. Cameron leaned against his desk. Because we're considering expansion into trauma-specific treatments, PTSD applications, military contracts, eventually, initial focus on civilian applications. Cameron studied him carefully, including treatment protocols for survivors of psychological manipulation and coercive control. The reference to Stella's experience with Blackwell and, by extension, Dominic's own victimization by Harrington hung unspoken between them. Send the proposal to my office, Dominic said evenly. The committee will review it on standard timeline. I'd like your personal assessment first, Cameron pressed. Given your unique perspective on the subject matter. Dominic set down his espresso cup. My perspective is irrelevant. The science and market potential determine investment decisions. Bullshit. Cameron's bluntness echoed his father's directness without the malicious undertone. You initially invested because of your ex-wife's condition. This expansion relates directly to what Blackwell did to her. What my father did to both of you. And that connection automatically secures my support? No, but it warrants your honest engagement rather than corporate deflection. Dominic considered Cameron thoughtfully. In the past 2 years, the younger Harrington had shed much of his father's influence, developing his own leadership style. More transparent, less manipulative, but equally determined. I'll review it personally, Dominic finally conceded. But the investment decision remains with the committee. Cameron nodded, accepting the qualified victory. There's something else you should know. I've been contacted by a journalist researching a book about my father's crimes. Comprehensive coverage, including your countermeasures. Dominic's expression didn't change, but his attention sharpened. Publisher, Stanton Press. Serious investigative journalist, not tabloid exploitation. Cameron sipped his espresso. I've agreed to be interviewed. Your prerogative. She'll contact you next. Lily Montero provided your name. The mention of Lily, someone Dominic hadn't seen since Stella's funeral, was unexpected. Montero is involved? Contributing editor, apparently. Cameron studied Dominic's reaction. Will you participate? No. The answer came without hesitation. The legal record is comprehensive. My perspective adds nothing of value, except the human element. How it felt to discover your wife's betrayal. How you planned your response. What motivated each step of your retaliation. Emotions are irrelevant to historical accuracy. Cameron laughed without humor. That's exactly why your participation matters. Your clinical approach to revenge fascinated the journalist. She called it methodical devastation without emotional satisfaction. An interesting but inaccurate assessment. Is it? Cameron set down his cup. 2 years later, with my father dead, his conspirators imprisoned or ruined, your revenge complete. Are you satisfied, Dominic? Did destroying everyone involved fill whatever void their betrayal created? The question was presumptuous, intrusive. Yet something in Cameron's direct approach merited an equally direct response. Satisfaction implies an emotional component. Dominic maintained eye contact. I sought appropriate consequences for specific actions. Once achieved, I moved forward. Without looking back, without regret or triumph. Looking backward limits forward progress. Cameron shook his head slightly. You're either the most evolved human being I've ever met or the most dangerously compartmentalized. Those categories aren't mutually exclusive. The conversation shifted to business matters, but Cameron's questions lingered as Dominic left the research facility. The proposed book represented a potential reopening of a chapter he considered definitively closed. Not a threat precisely, but an unwelcome resurrection of events better left to history. 3 days later, the journalist, Catherine Winters, a Pulitzer finalist for her coverage of financial crimes, contacted his office requesting an interview. Dominic declined through his assistant, offering only a prepared statement acknowledging the legal outcomes without personal commentary. That evening, Lily Montero appeared at his penthouse, unannounced, unexpected, and unwelcome. Security should never have allowed you up, Dominic noted as he reluctantly granted her entry. I mentioned Stella's name. Your head of security has a sentimental streak. Lily surveyed the minimalist space with critical eyes. Still living like an upscale monk, I see. What do you want, Lily? 5 minutes of honesty. She faced him directly. Catherine Winters is writing an important book. Your perspective matters to its completeness. The legal record isn't the full story, Lily interrupted. It documents what happened, but not why. Not the human cost. And you believe I'm qualified to address the human cost? Dominic's tone remained neutral. I believe you're the only person who experienced the entire arc, from victim to avenger to whatever you are now. Lily gestured vaguely. CEO, investor, empty vessel, poetic but inaccurate. Then correct the record. Lily's expression softened slightly. Stella's story deserves to be told accurately. So does yours. Why does it matter to you? Stella is gone. The legal outcomes are established. Because people should understand how someone like Lawrence Harrington operates. How vulnerable people like Stella get manipulated. How even strong, intelligent people like you can be targeted. Lily met his eyes directly. And how revenge, even when perfectly executed, costs something essential. Dominic studied her thoughtfully. You believe I've lost something through my actions. Haven't you? Lily glanced around the sterile penthouse. 2 years later, you live alone, work constantly, maintain no close relationships. You've rebuilt your professional empire while your personal life remains a fortress. Perhaps that's preference rather than loss. Is it? Lily's challenge was gentle but direct. Before Harrington's conspiracy, you had a life beyond calculation. Now you've become the human embodiment of a spreadsheet. All outcomes, no emotion. The assessment struck closer to truth than Dominic would acknowledge. The cold efficiency that had served his revenge had indeed become his defining characteristic, seeping beyond professional context into every aspect of his existence. One interview, Lily pressed. On your terms, with your boundaries. Then we never bother you again. Dominic considered the proposal with his typical methodical analysis. The book would be published regardless of his participation. His perspective might correct inaccuracies or misinterpretations. The cost seemed minimal for potential benefit. Send me the proposed question topics in advance, he finally conceded. 1 session, 2 hours maximum, recorded but subject to my approval before publication. Thank you. Lily's relief seemed genuine. Catherine will contact your office tomorrow. After she left, Dominic stood at his window overlooking the city lights, considering the unexpected development. He had constructed his post-revenge life with careful precision, professional advancement without personal entanglements, strategic investments without emotional attachments, forward momentum without backward reflection. The proposed interview threatened that carefully maintained separation between past and present. 2 weeks later, Catherine Winters arrived at his penthouse, neutral territory chosen over his office to avoid corporate overtones. In person, she projected focused intelligence without Lily's emotional intensity or Alvarez's professional detachment. "Thank you for agreeing to this interview," she began, setting up her recording equipment. "I understand your hesitation about revisiting these events. Do you?" Dominic's tone revealed nothing. Catherine smiled slightly. "Perhaps not, but I appreciate your willingness regardless." For the next 2 hours, she guided their conversation with surprising skill. Never confrontational, but persistently direct, allowing comfortable silences when Dominic needed to formulate precise responses. "When you discovered your wife's betrayal," she asked carefully, "what was your first emotional reaction?" "Clarity," Dominic answered after consideration. "Not anger or heartbreak initially. Just crystalline understanding that everything I believed about our relationship had been false. And that clarity guided your subsequent actions. It removed emotional interference from strategic planning." Catherine nodded thoughtfully. Many betrayed spouses act impulsively. Confrontations, public scenes, self-destructive behaviors. You instead constructed an elaborate response targeting everyone involved in the conspiracy. Why? Effectiveness, Dominic stated simply. Emotional reactions provide temporary relief, but rarely appropriate resolution. And your definition of appropriate resolution included financial destruction for Reed, comprehensive legal consequences for Harrington, complete dissolution of your marriage, proportional responses to specific betrayals. Catherine studied him. "Do you regret any aspect of your response?" The question gave Dominic pause. In 2 years, he had evaluated outcomes, but never considered regret as a relevant metric. "I recognize certain inefficiencies in my approach," he finally acknowledged. Energy directed toward Maxwell Reed might have been better allocated elsewhere. His role was secondary, his punishment perhaps disproportionate to his involvement. And regarding Stella, any reconsideration there? "No." The response came without hesitation. Her betrayal predated Harrington's manipulation. The consequences were appropriate to her actions. Catherine nodded, making a note. "After executing your revenge so completely, did you experience the satisfaction you anticipated?" "I never sought satisfaction." Dominic maintained eye contact. "I sought resolution." "And did you find it?" The question lingered between them, unexpectedly complex. Had he found resolution? The legal outcomes were definitive. The personal accounting complete. Yet something remained unresolved, not within the external parameters of his revenge, but within himself. "Resolution is an ongoing process," he finally said. The immediate objectives were achieved. The long-term integration continues. Integration of what? Exactly. Experience into identity. Dominic considered his words carefully. "Prior to these events, I defined myself through certain parameters: successful investor, dedicated husband, rational decision-maker. Afterward, those definitions required adjustment. And who are you now, in your own assessment?" The question should have been simplistic, yet Dominic found himself genuinely considering it. Who is he now? The architect of perfect revenge? The calculating CEO? The man who had loved and lost Stella? The target who had defeated Lawrence Harrington's conspiracy? "I am what I've always been," he finally answered. "Someone who calculates risks, evaluates returns, and executes strategies, but with modified algorithms based on updated data." Catherine smiled slightly. "That's perhaps the most clinical self-description I've ever recorded." "It's accurate. Is it complete?" Dominic didn't respond immediately. Was any self-assessment ever complete? The events surrounding Blackwell's murder and Harrington's conspiracy had fundamentally altered his understanding of trust, loyalty, and his own capacity for methodical retribution. But they hadn't changed his essential nature, merely revealed aspects previously untested. "It's sufficient," he finally said. After the interview concluded, Catherine thanked him for his candor, promising to send the relevant transcript sections for approval before publication. As she packed her equipment, she asked one final, unrecorded question. Off the record, would you do it all again the same way? The complete dismantling of everyone involved. Dominic considered the question with genuine reflection. No, he finally answered. I would be more selective in my targets, more precise in my methods. Harrington deserved everything he received. The others. He paused. Collateral damage isn't always necessary or productive. After Catherine left, Dominic remained in his living room, the conversation having stirred unexpected reflections. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to fully consider the arc of events from discovery to revenge to current reality. He had survived Harrington's conspiracy not just intact, but enhanced in many ways. His professional position was stronger than ever. His investment portfolio more diverse and successful. His reputation in financial circles untarnished by the personal scandal. Yet something fundamental had shifted within him. Not lost exactly, but transformed. The capacity for trust, for emotional connection, had been recalibrated to a narrower bandwidth. The potential for genuine partnership had been revised downward in his personal algorithm. Was this evolution or diminishment? Adaptation or damage? The question itself reflected a type of introspection he had largely abandoned since executing his revenge. 3 months later, Catherine's book was published to significant acclaim. The Harrington Conspiracy, Manipulation, Murder, and Methodical Revenge became an instant bestseller. Its unflinching examination of Lawrence Harrington's psychological manipulation and Dominic's calculated response capturing public fascination. Dominic received his copy directly from the publisher, but left it unopened on his desk for several days. When he finally read it, he found Catherine had captured the events with remarkable accuracy and unexpected insight. His own quoted sections were presented fairly within proper context. The final chapter, however, contained something unexpected, excerpt from Stella's journals that Dominic had never seen, apparently provided by her parents after her death. The entries dated from her final months in Connecticut. Dominic calculated perfectly, as he always does, the appropriate consequence for my betrayal. No more, no less. I find myself admiring the precision even as it destroys me. We were more alike than either of us recognized, both trapped in our own forms of calculation. Mine emotional, his strategic, both ultimately destructive. If I could tell him one thing now, it would be this. The perfect execution of revenge doesn't heal the original wound. It merely ensures both parties carry matching scars. Dominic closed the book, Stella's final assessment lingering in his mind. Her insight, even through the lens of her illness, contained an uncomfortable truth. His revenge, while meticulously executed, had indeed left its own mark upon him. Not a weakness precisely, but an alteration. That evening, he received an unexpected call from Cameron Harrington. I've just finished Winter's book, Cameron said without preamble. Compelling reading. Indeed, Dominic maintained his characteristic neutrality. My father's final prison journal entry is particularly interesting. Did you read it? Not yet. Dominic had skimmed the appendices, but not thoroughly. He wrote it the night before his suicide. Cameron's voice held complex emotions. My greatest achievement was not my financial empire or political connections, but creating a mirror image of myself in Dominic Reeves. In destroying him, I transformed him. My methods become his methods. My calculation his calculation. Even in defeat, I've ensured my approach survives in the man who destroyed me. The words landed with unexpected impact. Harrington's final assessment echoed Lily's concerns and Catherine's unspoken questions. Had his perfect revenge transformed Dominic into a reflection of the very man he had destroyed? My father was a manipulator until the end, Cameron continued. That final statement was his attempt to taint your victory. Or perhaps his most honest observation. Dominic surprised himself with the acknowledgement. You're nothing like him, Cameron stated firmly. Your calculation serves creation. His served only destruction. After ending the call, Dominic stood at his window, watching night settle over the city. considering Cameron's distinction. Creation versus destruction. Purpose beyond retribution. Direction beyond revenge. In the 2 years since executing his perfect vengeance, Dominic had indeed focused on building rather than destroying, expanding Monarch Financial, investing in Cameron's medical research, developing new investment strategies with broader application than personal wealth accumulation. Yet his personal life remained as cold and precisely ordered as his revenge had been. No significant relationships, no emotional connections beyond professional collaboration, no vulnerabilities that might be exploited by future betrayals. Lawrence Harrington was dead. Maxwell Reed remained imprisoned. Stella had taken her own life. All accounts had been settled, all betrayals addressed. Only Dominic himself remained, standing at the crossroads between continued isolation and potential reconnection. The calculation was complex, the variables numerous. Trust once broken was difficult to recalibrate. Vulnerability, once exploited, created lasting awareness of risk. Yet the alternative, permanent isolation behind walls of perfect calculation, represented its own form of defeat. If Harrington's final objective had been to transform Dominic into his mirror image, then maintaining that transformation meant Harrington's ultimate victory, even from beyond the grave. Dominic reached for his phone, making a decision that wasn't purely strategic for the first time in years. He dialed Jennifer Palmer's number. "I've been considering your foundation proposal," he said when she answered. "The Pediatric Psychiatric Initiative. I'd like to discuss potential personal involvement beyond financial investment." Personal involvement? Her surprise was evident. In what capacity? Advisory board initially. Perhaps more direct engagement as the program develops. Dominic found himself adding, "Some wounds can't be prevented, but better treatment might help recovery." Dominic Reeves considering something beyond financial returns. Jennifer's tone held gentle amusement. Catherine's book must have had quite an impact. Let's say it prompted recalculation of certain variables. After concluding the call, Dominic returned to the window, watching the city lights with new awareness. His revenge had been perfect, calculated, executed, and completed with precision. But revenge itself was inherently backward-looking, addressing past wounds rather than creating future possibilities. The true victory over Lawrence Harrington's conspiracy wasn't in the perfect execution of retribution, but in what came after, the choices made when the accounts were settled and the ledgers closed. Dominic Reeves would never forgive betrayal. He would never trust blindly or love without reservation. The cold calculation that had served his revenge would remain part of his approach to life and business. But perhaps that calculation could encompass more variables than self-protection and risk avoidance. Perhaps the algorithm could expand to include measured reconnection, calibrated vulnerability, strategic openness to experiences beyond revenge and its aftermath. Not forgiveness, never that, but perhaps evolution beyond the perfect revenge he had executed so completely. That would be the final victory Harrington could never anticipate and Stella would never witness. Not just surviving betrayal, not just executing retribution, but ultimately transcending both to become something neither victim nor avenger. Something entirely his own design. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.